Ladies and gentlemen, come gather round, come gather round, come gather around. Today, we're going to deal with that one area of the truck that I've neglected to deal with for 5 years because I've got some issues with it. And that is where to locate the battery. Let's go. So under the hood, I have some real estate issues. Not the best for light here, but down here you can kind of see this triangular little crease in the inner fender. That's where the battery used to go, but I've occupied it by this thing, so I can't put the battery there. But the turbocharger plumbs its way through, goes down through the intercooler over to this side. On this side I've got my methanol injection, the rest of the inlet, and brakes, and I don't really have a lot of real estate here for a battery either. And of course I raised the inner fender, so I have no place to put a battery under the hood. And I debated putting the battery behind the seat, but I don't really want to do that. Plus I may have to move the seat farther forward, and these cabs aren't that big to begin with. But I seriously debated about this, and one way of dealing with that is this. So this is a handy way of getting juice out of the cab if the battery's in there. I've used these in the past. You just drill a honking big hole, and this is an insulated bulkhead fitting, so you can have the battery connection inside the cab somewhere, and then you can have the battery connection come out, go to your starter and whatnot. These are handy. It's insulated, gives you big lugs to work with, and it seals off the hole in the firewall, so you don't have to mess with that sort of thing. Ultimately, I decided on this. In Fusion 360, I designed a battery holder that should be able to hold a 78 series battery, 78 group battery, and mount it on the inside of the frame on the back of the truck. In my head, this is my best option. I neglected to save the files I took of it being plasma cut, but here you are looking through my deteriorated plexiglass screen as I sandblast it. Yay. Sandblasting, I believe I used nickel slag this time. I often use crushed glass, but this is what I used. And here's all the pieces. This is only the second device that I've designed that keys together, and like most of my projects, I need a little bit of love from the grinder to make sure the pieces all fit. This is sometimes called the death wheel, although it's a smaller version of it. I recommend wearing a face shield when you're using this. Google die grinder accident and you'll wish you were wearing a face shield too. If you wear eye protection, like goggles, you can at least see that you're no longer pretty. But if you wear a face shield, you can still be pretty. I tried a variety of ways of clamping and holding this together, and nothing was really working effectively. I only have one pipe clamp because I don't work with wood. You guys who work with wood, you're on your own. Wood for me is for wheel chock, subwoofer boxes, and protecting my drill press table. I work with wood under duress. So, adjusting the edges and the interlocking tabs so it fits, and as part of figuring out how much clearance do I need to design for the next one to make them all fit together. And then I don't know if I'm TIG welding this correctly or in the right order, but it held, and it did the job, and it works, so I'm good. I also intended to powder coat this. I do have a powder coating gun that I bought, oh man, probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I used it once just to see if it would work. And in the excitement of getting this thing done, what was I just talking about? Oh man, it sucks getting old. I did not powder coat it. I was epoxy priming something and thought, oh shoot, I need to do the battery holder. So I dragged it out and epoxy primed it. So hooray. At any rate, it's kind of fun taking it together. The tabs are kind of nice because they really hold everything in place beautifully. And I'm pretty pleased with the way this worked. Turned out pretty good. This is actually the second one that I made, because the first one, once I brought it all home, I think I noticed that I offset to the wrong side, so it almost fit a Group 78 battery. So here I'm trying to match the same angle as the frame. The truck doesn't sit exactly horizontal on my hoist, so I just matched that angle. And then I'm drilling and threading through the fish plate that you see for the notch on the frame, because that's good and thick. And on the opposite end, I just ran a bolt through it and put a nut on the other side, because there's not really enough meat to thread into.
in theory, ideally, with threaded fasteners, you want to have thread engagement equal to 1.5 times the diameter of the threaded fastener. We don't have that here, but it's going to be pretty close. It'll work. It's almost the thickness of a nut, so it'll be okay. This frame was done it was sandblasted, epoxy primed, and then sprayed in PPG's Del Fleet in gloss black. It's a commercial kind of paint, Fleet paint, high solids, high build, reasonably durable. I don't care if it's show quality or not, it works. Advantage with regular paint versus powder coating, if you ever need to make a change to it, you can, because it's just paint. Powder coating, once you've drilled a hole and perforated it, I'm not convinced it's the best. In this beautiful video, you're watching me happily weld the little tab to hold the battery down on the wrong side of the battery holder. So what you won't see in a moment is a lot of cold, stark realization and then swearing and cursing and colorful metaphors as I grind it off, make a new one, and weld it into the proper location. So we're not even going to mention that I put this on the wrong side. If you're excited about it, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'm looking forward to skipping over it. However, TIG welded, all nice and neat. Pretty sure it's TIG. Well, duh, it's TIG. I don't remember if I used silicon bronze or not, but it doesn't look like I did.
So here's the battery bracket in all its painted glory. I'm going to test this dying but still okay battery and see how this goes. I'll buy a new one later.
So I painted it with a textured, like a hammered finish paint. And this battery is a Group 24, which fits fairly well. It's just a little bit taller. And I did end up replacing the battery with I bought a battery that is a Group, I want to say 34. It's almost a 78, but it has top posts, which is convenient. And then we're threading it all together with some grade 8 fasteners, nuts and bolts. You can see the battery ground clamp hooked up to the frame. You want to make sure you've got a good solid ground from the battery to your chassis and from your chassis to your engine block. And if your cab is on, if it's a cab on a frame, you want to have a decent ground from the frame up to your cab as well. You want to make sure it's easy for the electricity to get back to the battery. And in the back here, we're drilling a bunch of different holes because I need to have a good fat power lead running the air ride air compressors, and I wanted a good fat lead to run a decent stereo. And then we got the big fat lead of the battery going up to, actually I put instead of a fusible link, the American Autowire wiring kit comes with a couple of big honkin' monster fuses. I think they're 150 amps. One that comes from the starter to the alternator and one that comes from the starter to everything else. And then the starter doesn't have a fuse at all, so technically that starter is your fuse. I'm using, I think it's either 2 gauge or number 2 wire. Bought it at Princess Auto. That stuff's pricey. But the longer the distance you want to go, the fatter the cable you want to have. The ground isn't too much of an issue because you're going to use the whole chassis as a ground. Still, I had the 2 gauge wire, so I used that for my ground cable as well, because go big or go home. And I have this cool bracket that holds the air ride air tank on the frame, but it's right in the way of where I wanted to run some lines. So I drilled holes through the brackets.
From the battery along the frame comes up to here, and these are just difficult to open. There we go. So these are just big honkin' fuses. So the battery connects to this one. It's lugged to here. That goes straight to the starter. Fused, this goes to feed the inside of the car, and this one is fused and goes to the alternator. So the alternator charges the battery, but also can feed what's being drained in your car. You don't generally have a fuse on your starter but I guess that would be a slow blow fuse of some kind, probably rated at a bajillion amps. I may put a coupling nut on here and then poke a hole in this so that I have a place to boost the truck should I ever need to boost. Come on, there we are. Alternatively, we could go off the back of this. Don't think I'll do that. There's my pliers. So here is the battery holder in its glory down here under the back of the vehicle. It's got a pretty dead Group 24, but we're going to put a 78 with a top post on it because this thing's not holding a charge. But there it is. All its wonderful goodness. Battery cables run all the way around. Got the air ride. Got a couple of compressors up here. Ding. Couple of compressors. Ding again. Got the air ride going into the back of the cab. Oh man. So it took me 4 years to figure out where I'm going to put the battery on this thing. Finally decided under the frame. So is it the best place? I don't know. Does it work? I don't know. But stick around. We're probably going to try and make this thing run real quick because I think we're just about done. So, as always, take care, and we'll see you again. Thanks for watching.